Hi, welcome to the American Journal of Hypertension YouTube channel. My name is Swapnil Hiremat. I'm a nephrologist at the University of Ottawa and an associate professor of medicine. I'm one of the social media editors at the American Journal of Hypertension. And with me today is Brandy.
I am Brandy Wynn. I'm an assistant professor of medicine at the University of Utah in the Division of Nephrology and Hypertension. And I am the other social media editor. And here today we have with us Dr. Ernesto Schiffrin.
So Dr. Ernesto Schiffrin, for those of whom, very few people who don't know him, he is a professor of medicine at the McGill University in Montreal. He's also the physician-in-chief at the Jewish General Hospital, where he has got an active clinical practice. He's a scientist who has had more than 45 years of unbroken grant funding for the research that he has done. And he's been a past president of the International Society of Hypertension, among many other accolades. And for the purpose of today's discussion, he's also the editor-in-chief at the American Journal of Hypertension. Welcome, Dr. Schiffrin.
Hello. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. So we'd like to start off with some questions about your decision. You are the editor-in-chief at the American Journal of Hypertension. You have had many leadership positions. You have been a scientist. You are a physician. What made this position attractive to you when you decided to take it up?
Well, so I had been for about 13 years an associate editor of Hypertension, the Journal of the American Heart Association. And of course, I got my training as an editor there, did a lot of stuff there, chose editorials, did the clinical implications, and actually edited a whole range of articles. And so at some point, the board of the American Journal of Hypertension came to me and offered me to become the editor-in-chief of the American Journal of Hypertension. And well, I felt that there was a challenge there. The challenge was one, to go from being an associate editor to being the editor-in-chief. That is, in a way, directing the course of the journal, its growth, its areas of interest, its development, but also because it was a journal that had perhaps a slightly lower impact factor. And that in itself was a challenge to try to steer the journal in a way that might allow it to grow in impact and to publish impactful manuscripts that would span the whole field of hypertension and related cardiovascular disease, both in basic science of hypertension, as well as clinical research, epidemiology, population science, and health services research. And in many ways, I came from a journal that perhaps had more of the basic science of hypertension. And I felt that in that stage of my life, I was interested in being involved in editing papers that would improve outcomes, change practice, and so affect or be involved more with clinical research, epidemiology, population science, and health services research.
Wow, so that's quite an answer. So one of your things you were saying about the journal having a lower impact factor, and you sort of feel like you can have more of an impact on a journal that has a ways to go, and there's really great articles being published. So I was wondering if this sort of plays into your idea and the reason why you had a goal of developing a social media arm for the journal. Was this part of the reasoning for that, or any thoughts about how you plan and where you plan to take this into the journal?
Yes, absolutely. So we wondered, how can we increase the impact? How can we increase the profile? Put it more on the radar screen of people. And there's no doubt that the development of social media has made social media a vehicle, a way to take a journal, for example, in this case, to the readers. And other journals have published articles demonstrating how social media may increase the reach of a scientific journal. And so for that reason, together with the board of the journal, after multiple discussions, and is it the good approach to increase the reach of the journal, we decided to hire two excellent social media editors and take advantage of their expertise in extending the influence of the journal through social media. And I think that there's no doubt from other work that I've seen that the use of social media really does bring the scientific journal into the radar screen of readers and makes them more prone to either reading the articles, citing the articles, and finally submitting their best science to the journal.
Fabulous. We are really happy that you decided to go down the social media path. For listeners and the audience who are not following us, we do have a Twitter handle at AMJ Hypertension, and we'll put our Twitter handle in the comments below. Now, moving on, as an author, when we submit an article, it's like a black box, right? We keep our fingers crossed, we hit the submit button, and sometimes we get a rejection in the next few hours. And, if it does not, then we are kind of hopeful, keep our fingers crossed. But from an author's perspective, it's sort of like a black box, right? We don't know what happens behind the curtain. Can you give us a sneak peek of what you can share of the editorial process?
Yes, so the paper is submitted through the website of the journal. The executive editor looks at it, verifies it, makes sure that the article is presented according to the rules of the journal, that the references are correctly presented, that figures and tables are appropriate and have the right accuracy and quality. And once we go through that period, which is in the hands of the executive editor, she, according to rules that we've established beforehand, attributes the manuscript to one of the associate editors. I function as an associate editor as well, meaning that I edit the journal. What does editing the manuscript mean? Means that you assign once you assign the manuscript to an associate editor, the associate editor will choose reviewers who are experts in the field of the manuscript. And we send the article off by a click on the computer to 4, 5, 6, 10, 12 more reviewers. You hope to get 3, 4 reviewers. Sometimes you get 2 reviewers only who agree to review the manuscript. And you hope that you've chosen well. And there's an order that I like to speak about. The most important thing is the science that the manuscript transmits, the rigor of the science. Second, the authors. Third, the reviewers. So we like to protect the authors from any kind of disrespectful review. Even if their paper is rejected, it should be rejected in a fair manner and in a gentlemanly manner, in a delicate manner and a diplomatic way. There's no need to offend. So second, the authors. Third, our reviewers. The reviewers will review the article, tear it apart, put it back together, and write their analysis and their recommendation. And we like to follow, as much as possible, recommendations of reviewers. Sometimes the reviewers differ. One recommends a major revision, another recommends a rejection, and the associate editor has to make a judgment. And we try to respect as much as we can the recommendation of the reviewers. But sometimes you make a decision in which you favor the recommendation of one over another, and so on and so forth. And then you make your decision, let's say a minor revision, a major revision, a rejection allowing de novo resubmission, or a rejection with no possibility of resubmission. And that is the course of the process in the editorial office among the editors, who are all over the world, because we have one in Japan, several in the US, myself in Canada. And we communicate between each other. Sometimes the associate editors will communicate with me and present their doubts about a manuscript. They are kind of sitting on the fence between major revision and perhaps a rejection with de novo resubmission allowed, or between the latter and a rejection without ability to resubmit. And I will look at the manuscript and give them my opinion. Eventually, they make a decision, and I look at every decision made in the journal by the associate editors and confirm it, or discuss with them, look, I am not in agreement with you. I think this paper that you've asked for a major revision should be rejected. You were in doubt, well, I think it should be rejected, and so on and so forth. But it's a amicable discussion at the highest scientific level that we carry out in order to provide the author with the best answer that we can, the most rigorous answer that we can, and the most honest and fair answer that we can. And so that manuscript goes back to the author. For example, if there's a major revision, eventually the manuscript is resubmitted with an explanation of what changes have been made, a rebuttal of certain points that reviewers have made, or an agreement with those points and what changes have been made in consequence. And we repeat the whole process, goes back to the reviewers, and the reviewers give their final opinion. And finally, we have a decision, and the manuscript is accepted or rejected finally for publication. If it's accepted, then it goes through the whole production process and eventually gets published online, and in the past in print. And of course, as you know well, we're now online only, and we no longer produce a print edition since this year, since the beginning of this year, of the American Journal of Hypertension.